Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the only thing stopping you from getting your first rent-to-rent deal. Now, over the last 3 months, I've spoken to over 100 people on discovery calls, and what's become quite clear to me is that most of those people have one thing stopping them from achieving rent-to-rent success, and it's not anything to do with the tactics, the right pitch, having a good website, which areas they target, what they're saying to landlords. It's got nothing to do with any of that. The main stumbling block, the main obstacle for 70 to 80% of those people that I've spoken to has been their lack of self-belief. They all have self-limiting beliefs, and deep down, they don't truly believe that they can succeed. And in this video, I'd like to talk about that, because if I can help just one person overcome their self-limiting beliefs, then it's worth making this video. And I believe that you can overcome your self-limiting beliefs. I don't think it's a permanent mindset. I think, like anything, you can work on it, you can improve it, and you can overcome it. It just takes some work. It takes understanding why you're feeling that way, and then you need to practice how to get past this obstacle, because on the other side of your self-limiting beliefs is everything you've ever wanted to achieve. I remember having self-limiting beliefs when I started my rent-to-rent business, but if I hadn't overcome them, then I wouldn't have a successful rent-to-rent business today. I wouldn't have bought a portfolio of buy-to-let properties, and I wouldn't be able to teach people how to build their rent-to-rent businesses. So on the other side of your self-limiting beliefs is abundance. You just have to work out how to get past those limiting beliefs. So in this video, we're going to talk about it, because the only thing standing between you and your first rent-to-rent deal is you. So let's look at some of the most common self-limiting beliefs when it comes to rent-to-rent. So some of the most common ones that I hear often on the discovery calls that people book with me is, I don't have enough money to start. What if I fail? I'm not confident talking to landlords or agents. I don't have enough time. I don't know enough yet. I've failed at things before. Now, what I want you to do is to start challenging these beliefs. I want you to try and shift these beliefs from limiting beliefs to empowering truths. So let's look at this first limiting belief. I need money to start. Well, you can start with as little as £5,000. I started my rent-to-rent business with around £6,000. I've had students that have been successful from rent-to-rent who've only had £3,000 or £4,000 to start. They've either borrowed money from friends, or maybe they've used their £2,000 or £3,000 to pay their first 2 months rent to a landlord, and then they've put the cosmetic refurbishment and the furniture on a 0% interest credit card. But generally speaking, you don't need loads of money to start rent-to-rent. You only need around £5,000 to £6,000 max. Most of my students are testament to this, and even myself. I only had around £6,000 when I got started. I spent around £1,000 on setting the business up, and then my first rent-to-rent deal cost me around £4,000. That rent-to-rent deal made me £900 a month. I saved that money up for around 4 months, and then I used that profit to take on my second rent-to-rent deal. And by the end of the year, I had 5 rent-to-rent deals, and I was making around £4,500 to £5,000 a month in profit, all from that initial £5,000 to £6,000 investment in starting my business and taking on my first rent-to-rent deal. So needing money to start is a limiting belief, but the empowering truth is that you can start now with as little as £5,000. The second limiting belief is that I'm not confident. Well, no one's confident in the beginning. I wasn't confident in the beginning. I remember being terrified to go into my first viewing, but confidence comes from practice. No one ever starts confident. Confidence is something you develop along the way, and it comes from practice. So rather than thinking I'm not confident, empower yourself and start thinking confidence comes from practice. So start practicing and your confidence will build and grow. The third limiting belief is that I'm too busy. Well, most of my successful students work around 1 to 2 hours a day on their business. You only really need around 1 to 2 hours a day of focused work to build your rent-to-rent business. When I first started, I was working part-time doing delivery driving, and for around half an hour to 45 minutes on the way into work in the mornings, I would phone agents, I would phone landlords, and then again on my lunch break, I'd spend another half an hour, 45 minutes phoning landlords while I was driving around in the van. And then when I got home from work at around 4 or 5, I'd spend another 45 minutes working on my business, improving my landing page, getting my business cards sent out, sending some emails, and making small, subtle improvements to the business. So you only actually need around 1 to 2 hours a day of focused work. So being too busy is a self-limiting belief, because if you want it bad enough, then you'll find time. And most of us, if we were to look at our screen time, we would find hours and hours of time wasted scrolling on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, those hours you could be using to build your rent-to-rent business and actually start making money from other people's properties, rather than being a consumer and wasting time on your phone, watching animal videos or the shade room, or paying attention to other mindless gossip. 1 to 2 hours of focused work every day adds up to 14 hours a week, and over the course of a month you're looking at nearly 60 hours of focused work. You can get a lot done in 60 hours if you're focused. So being too busy is a self-limiting belief. The empowering truth is that you only need 1 to 2 hours of focused work every day. So if you want to build a rent-to-rent business, then you'll find the time. The fourth limiting belief is that I'm not smart enough. Well, I wouldn't class myself as particularly smart. I got kicked out of school in year 9 when I was around 14. I've got 1 GCSE in English. I failed at every other subject other than PE, I think. I've always been quite good at sports. But other than that, I wouldn't class myself as an academic person, as a highly intelligent person, and I still managed to build a successful rent-to-rent business. I've still managed to buy a portfolio of properties. I've managed to build an education business too, and I wouldn't class myself as being very smart. To be a successful business owner, you don't need to be smart. You need to be resilient, you need to be disciplined, and you need to be focused. How intelligent you are doesn't really come into it. If you have those 3 qualities, discipline, resilience, and focus, you'll be able to make a success of yourself. Property isn't about IQ, it's about consistency. So I stopped learning academically at the age of 14. I didn't go to university. Everything I've learned has been from implementation and learning as I go. I've taught myself quite a few things. I've read quite a few books on self-development, on business, on entrepreneurship, on money, but most of my learnings and my education has come from self-development and life experience. It hasn't come from an academic life, an academic background, university or school. So not being smart enough is another limiting belief, and building a successful rent-to-rent business has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's more about how resourceful you are and how consistently you can do the work. So not being smart enough is another limiting belief. And the 5th limiting belief that I always hear is I might fail. Failure only really occurs when you never start or when you give up. The only way you actually fail is if you stop or you never start in the first place. But if you do start and you're willing to learn as you go, you might make some mistakes, you might fall down a couple times, you might have to get back up and go again. But if you keep moving forward, then it's impossible to fail, because you're going to learn a lesson every time things don't go your way. And each time you learn a lesson, you're going to improve, and things are going to become slightly easier because you're going to develop more skill. Most people fail because they never start. You succeed by showing up. All you have to do is keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep learning, keep improving, and keep moving forward. You only fail when you give up or when you don't start at all. So always remember that. Worrying about failure is another limiting belief. The empowering truth is you fail by never starting, and you succeed by showing up. So now that we've challenged some of these self-limiting beliefs and we've replaced them with empowering truths, I want you to challenge your mind to do this reflection exercise. I want you to try and rewire your mindset. So the first thing I want you to do is think about your biggest fear around starting a rent-to-rent business. Then I want you to think, if that fear wasn't true, what would your life look like? So your biggest fear might be losing money, not being able to pay the rent, not making any money, being a failure, going bankrupt, the landlord's taking the properties back from you. These might be your biggest fears. But what I want you to do is imagine that none of these things actually happen. What would your life look like then? Well, you might have 3, 5 or 10 rent-to-rents, all under control, all making you £900 to £1,000 a month each. If you had just 3, that would replace your income and would allow you to quit your 9 to 5 and work solely on your rent-to-rent business. Imagine that. What would your life be like then? Running your business from your phone or your laptop, working 1 to 2 hours a day on your property business. How would that feel? Imagine you had 5 rent-to-rents, all making you £1,000 a month. That's £60,000 a year from a business that only takes you a couple hours a day to run. What would your life be like then? At that point, you could live off of £30,000, and maybe you could use the other £30,000 to buy yourself a buy-to-let property every year. In 5 years' time, you'd have a buy-to-let portfolio and a rent-to-rent portfolio. You'd be a very wealthy person at that point. What would your life be like then? Imagine that. What if you got to 10 rent-to-rents and you were making £10,000 a month? That's £120,000 a year. Only 2 to 3% of people in the UK earn that much money. You could get yourself to that position in the next 2 years. How would that feel? How would that feel for your family? How much more would you be able to offer to your friends and your family? How much more time would you have if you had a £10,000 a month business that only took you a couple hours a day to run? Maybe you could travel more. Maybe you could do some work on the beach, on your laptop. Maybe you could spend more time with your children, with your loved ones. How would that feel? So if your fears weren't true, what would your life look like? I want you to think about that and get really clear on it. Visualize and imagine how your life would feel, how it would look if you were making £5,000 to £10,000 a month from your rent-to-rent business, only working a couple hours a day, because this is a real reality. Think about that. Visualize it, feel it. And then finally, I want you to write this down. Write down your affirmations, write down your visions, write down how that would make you feel, what your life would look like if you got to that stage, and then read it back to yourself daily. Use this as your new vision. So once you've done this reflection exercise and you've rewired your mindset, I want you to adopt these mindset shifts. Now, these are the most common 3 beliefs of my most successful rent-to-rent students. These are the 3 traits that I notice in all of them. And if you can learn to adopt these traits, then there's no reason why you couldn't be the next rent-to-rent success. The first thing I've noticed about all of my success students is they start before they're ready. Some people come into my program, they start to go through the course curriculum, and they try and do everything perfectly. They want to have the perfect website, the perfect logo, the perfect business cards, the perfect pitch. They want to find the perfect properties. They want to see the perfect amount of profit on every deal that they analyze. And because of this need to be perfect, they never actually get their first rent-to-rent deal because they're waiting for perfection, and perfection never comes. Now, when I compare those people to my successful rent-to-rent students, my successful students start before they're ready. Some of them have barely worked through 20 to 30% of the course curriculum, but what they do go and do straight away is they start booking viewings. They start speaking with landlords and agents, and before you know it, they're negotiating on deals, they're making offers, and they get their first deal. The best example of this I can think of is one of my most recent rent-to-rent success stories, Aman. She's been working with us for the last 7 weeks. I can see when I log into my program that she's only completed around 30% of the course curriculum, but we speak every day on WhatsApp. She's messaged hundreds of landlords. She's probably been on around 30 to 40 viewings. She's made around 3 offers, and because of this high volume of outreach and practical work, she's got her first deal within 7 weeks of working with us, which is our quickest success story yet. And when I think about some of my other students who've succeeded, they were very similar. They started doing the practical immediately. They committed to a high volume of outreach. They committed to going on a lot of viewings, and they wouldn't stop until they made progress. So this is a common trait of my successful students, starting before they're ready. Getting things done is better than being perfect. So my successful students, they go and meet agents, they go and meet landlords, they go on viewings, and they're making offers way before anything's perfect. Yes, I ask them to set their landing pages up. I ask them to get insured and become compliant. But once they've done that, they normally do that within the first 2 weeks. And then they're off doing the practical, doing what needs to be done to get those deals over the line. They're not trying to be perfect. They're trying to get things done. And that's a common trait amongst all of them. The third trait that they all have is they become confident by taking messy action. When I think about my first call with Aman, she was quite timid, quite unsure. She wasn't sure if rent-to-rent was going to work for her. Fast forward 7 to 8 weeks, she's spoken to 30, 40 landlords, she's made multiple offers, and she's got her first deal. And speaking to her now, she's so confident. She understands exactly how it works. She understands the value in the service, and because she's spoken to so many landlords and so many of them have been open to her service, her confidence has gone through the roof because she now has self-belief. She knows there's a gap in the market for her service, and she knows that it's only a matter of time before she has 3, 4, 5, or even 10 rent-to-rent properties. It's just a matter of speaking to enough people, saying the right things on a consistent basis for a sustained period of time. She knows this because she was willing to take messy action. So those are the 3 main traits of my successful students. They start before they're ready, they understand that done is better than perfect, and they become confident by taking messy action. I have these traits too. My rent-to-rent success was very messy, it was very chaotic, and it certainly wasn't perfect. So if you can adopt these mindset shifts, then you can be the next rent-to-rent success story. You just have to shift your mindset and adopt these 3 beliefs. So we've covered common self-limiting beliefs and how you should shift those beliefs into empowering truths. We've spoke about rewiring your mindset, and we've adopted the 3 main beliefs of my success students. So now it's your turn. These people that have succeeded from rent to rent, including myself, we're just like you. We're no different. We've all come from normal backgrounds. We all have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, and a mouth. We're human beings just like you. All of my success students have come from working a 9 to 5 and transitioned into becoming rent-to-rent business owners. They were all just like you. So ask yourself, if someone just like me has done it, then why not me? Why can't I achieve the same success? Ask yourself this. There's no reason why you can't. You just have to believe in yourself and get out of your own way. Remember, the only thing standing between you and your first rent-to-rent deal is you. Now, if you need someone to help you get your first 1 to 3 rent-to-rent deals within the next 180 days, guaranteed, then I'll put a link in the video description below. Click the link and book a call in with myself. On that call, we'll work out if we're a good fit for each other and if I'd be a good mentor for you. If not, then keep watching my videos. Try and overcome your self-limiting beliefs and get out of your own way. The only thing holding you back is your mindset. If you get your mindset right, everything else will follow. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.